Hi guys, it's a couple of days actually after Chi-Chi passed away, and curiously, Chi-Chi passed away on October the 10th, which was World Mental Health Day or Mental Health Awareness Day, which would have been an incredibly opportune moment to do a mental health download. And if I'm right, I mean, many different websites say different things, but the topic I think was being overwhelmed, experiences or emotions of feeling overwhelmed and how that impacts on your mental health. And as you know, I've got sit next to me here, look, Toffee, little Toffs, wondering what the hell's going on. Sorry, I've just done a power walk with her through the park. And I'm recording this, so I'm not recording this on Mental Health Awareness Day, but I am recording it pretty close to, and it is a mental health download, and it is a chat about loss. Nadia's uploaded her unfiltered. I've only watched a part of it because I found it too emotional. Wow, I mean, we've lost Chi-Chi. We're you know, if anyone says losing a pet, just the word pet is so insufficient, isn't it, to compensate for the personality of a dog or a cat or whatever animal you've got that's been with you for some time, for not long, whatever. It's an individual living creature that becomes an amorphous part of your family. And, we're in mourning, we're in true mourning. We feel grief stricken, and part of the grief for Chi-Chi, our cockapoo, and I'll talk about what happened in the end to her, bless her, but part of the grief around it is that however prepared you are for anything, whether you've been told you've got a week to live, whether you've been told you've got 3 years to live, whether you've been told you're going to die or they're going to die that day, when it comes, it's sudden. When it comes, it's like a tearing sensation. It's like a tearing of the soul, one soul from another soul. There's an interconnectedness that carries on, I get it, but also you lose that physical connection to it. You lose the physical vessel that makes that connection tangible, and literal and physical. And so the grief that we're feeling around Chi-Chi is also attached to many other areas of grief that we're feeling in relationship to other people, other relationships, those we love. And we're also feeling the grief that I think one of the very specific things you lose when you lose a dog or a cat or a pet is an entire shared history, memories, events, occurrences. There's a whole bunch of people about to pass me now, so if I cut, it's because they're staring at me in a weird way. Toffee is perplexed, aren't you, darling? You wonder where Chi-Chi is, don't you? Yeah, bless her. She's a funny little dog, but I can tell something's changed. And if something like Toffee can know, if a creature like Toffee can know things have changed, then imagine what we're feeling as humans. So I feel like I've gone through a big grieving process. Let me just tell that. I feel like I'm going through a grieving process for, if not like my mum having passed, because she hasn't, and I think she will be with us for a good long time. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, things are going to improve in that department. But I am grieving, even with my mum, a certain type of relationship or a certain type of friendship or a certain type of connection that has ended, and a new one is evolving. And then, so there is projection there. You experience the death of a dog. We've all thought about Toffee. She's a couple of years older than Chi-Chi. So, let's just do the math. You end up feeling, if you're a parent and you lose a pet, or you're going through kind of all these kind of gyrations around grief and loss, you think, how will my kids cope? How will our kids cope when there's the inevitability of us, you know, dying? I mean, of course, our kids are very lucky in that they have 3 of their grandparents. They've probably got 4. I just don't know who my father is or where he is. And so anyway, let's just go back to what happened. So Chi fell ill. She became very sort of low energy. I think it became first apparent to all of us. I think it was on camera. It was at the same time that we did the Sunday show. Very low key. I mean, and anyone who knows Chi will know that she was incredibly into her food. She was a walking stomach. And she just went off her food. And then she just started to just have a doziness about her that was a cause for concern. So I quickly took her into the vets. They said, okay, well, look, let's keep her in. It is odd that she's gone off her food. Let's scan her. They did did all the scans. They did all the checks. And then basically they said that her kidneys were almost entirely compromised. So there are 4 stages to kidney disease, and she was at stage 4. There was a calcification was happening. And part of that, sorry, toffs, part of that was due to the vasculitis or cellulitis, vasculitis that she had 4 years ago. And I remember being told at the time when we were collecting her from the Royal Veterinary College, they said, look, we can steroid her way through this, but the steroids will compromise her immune system, her organs, her health. And so it was a kind of trade-off between steroiding her back to some kind of health and normality. But if we hadn't steroided her, we would have lost her probably 2 years ago. We did steroid her for a bit, and then I with the help of a very kind of, what's the word? Sort of not unofficial, but, a vet that isn't just sort of kind of prescriptive and just locked into one way of thinking, decided we would slowly ease her off the steroids to see if she could, and that would prolong her life. And it did. So we had she got to 11, having struggled with the bad disease. But the thing is that from that Sunday show noticing her loss of appetite to, let's say, taking her in, diagnosis, her coming home for 24 hours. I mean, what we're going through with Chi, when you sort of superimpose what Nadia and the Fab Four are going through with Hannah, some of the parallels in terms of what we were hearing and what we were being told and what the kind of benchmarks for things were, and it's just been really strange. It's just been really odd. It's been doubly odd for Nads, of course. I mean, obviously we all know Hannah. We don't know her as well as Nads, but we have a true understanding and connection with her in terms of her spirit, her soul. Just such a kind, good, beautiful person, and she's struggling through a really critical stage in her illness. And that is weighing so heavily on Nadia. It's weighing so heavily on all of us, because we just, we're both thinking of Hannah, but we're also thinking of the other 3 in the Fab Four. And, so there's that grief. There's that, we haven't gone into the detail of who was lost connected to our family a little bit earlier in the year, or a couple of months ago. And whilst that relationship was way in the past and gone, its implications were massive. And my mum, whether we like it or not, however my mum wants to kind of skin this, my mum's life has depleted so dramatically that I worry that if we were to kind of repeat the same depletion across the same amount of time, then, I just worry for my mum's welfare, for her mental state, for her ability to kind of carry on, really. And so, we've got... And so then Chi happens, and it's like going back to the Mental Health Awareness Day, overwhelmed. I mean, I think the topic of feeling overwhelmed was in connection with the news flow and state of the world and the global awfulness of the genocide and just everything that's happening in America. The world feels like a really abrasive, barbaric, hostile, threatening, unsafe place. All the narratives that we could sell principally only in the West, to be brutally honest, because we have the money. But in the developed world, all those myths and narratives that we try and sell our kids of do A, do B, do C, and you should be relatively safe and a bit comfortable, and you don't need to worry, and you're lucky. It feels like the very the very nuts and bolts that hold that kind of concept together are being slowly unscrewed and pulled out, or the whole thing is rattling and it's about to blow. So that's that. But then when you look at what we're going through and what we're feeling and what we're trying to manage in terms of expectation versus projection versus being prepared, and I think this is where the stress of grief and having so many different kind of narratives that we feel, so many different storylines that are sort of developing in our own lives around people who feel vulnerable and at risk. And I think that's the thing. I think people feel vulnerable and at risk. And some of those people who are vulnerable and at risk aren't vulnerable and at risk necessarily of death, say our kids, but they are vulnerable and at risk of, being taken under by the enormity of the emotions. I know Nadia thinks often about the fact that, she's so lucky that her mum and dad are well, but even, Teddy's 92, 93, and it's like my nan always used to say at 92, 93, she said, you'd ask her how she was, and she'd go, well, Mark, what can I say? That 93, you're always terminal. And I kind of get what she means. There's a fragility to everything. And when you when you do have mental health issues, when you do have periods of time where regulating your mood, and who regulates their mood accurately or well? And also, sometimes it's really hard, especially for me and for Nads, to work out, well, hang on a minute, we're having an entirely appropriate response to a whole heap of shit. And then put on top of that the shit that all of us are going through collectively on the planet. But the really hard part of all of it is not taking something like, the Chi-Chi's death. It came and it happened and she's gone in a week. And we didn't have that one factored into, or we hadn't projected for that one. And so if you struggle with anxiety, if you struggle with stress and one gets disordered thinking and disordered behaviors around the unknowability of things, I've talked before, the way I try and manage things and have tried to manage things in my life is I try to kind of predict and pre-script and control, and then if it doesn't go the way that I think it's going to go, then I fear that something worse is going to happen. We didn't factor for Chi-Chi dying. That wasn't part of the fucking 2025 narrative, of which we have 3 to 4 incredibly vulnerable narratives already running, all of which at any point could just flip over into total trauma. And then that was thrown in, and trying to stay, like if you're on a dinghy, if you're trying to then stay afloat and keep some kind of course correction going and some direction going, and every time you turn around you see your girls, your kids are kind of a bit at sea. And I had a call just now from my mum, I can hear in her voice she obviously wants to know how we are, because she knows about Chi-Chi, she knows about Hannah, but she's kind of like, I can also hear she needs me, and I'm going to go over there tomorrow. And it's just like, but then there feels like there's no moment to stop and pause and just think, get a grip, and then think, okay, well, we can be calm here, because at the point that we were calm, Chi-Chi went. And so what do you do when you have, a huge component of your mental health issues pivots around the unknowability and uncontrollability of everything? And you have to, and rightly so, use the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Sometimes, very rarely, but on this occasion, courage, strength, and wisdom. What do we apply each of those to? Which of those, which can we control, which can't we control? Which over which do we need to have the wisdom to know the difference? If they come at you completely left field, completely sidebarred, what? And so it doesn't lend itself well to waking up in the morning and not feeling like you're going to be hit by a fucking juggernaut from the right. Because, okay, it happened over a week. Yes, we went through the process of diagnosis. Yes, we went to the vets. Yes, she came back home. We went, the vets were so not impressed, that sounds wrong, but they were so, they could see how much we loved Chi-Chi. They were like, the fact that you took her home to spend the last 24, 36 hours with her. I spent it with her in the garden. The girls spent it holding her and hugging her and stroking her. She had a couple of fits at home. They said she would. And at the point that we knew that we just felt that she was just taken to a place of depletion. She wasn't in pain. They said she was not in pain, but she was just getting to such a place of depletion. We then took her in. There was such care and love, but it doesn't change what the outcome is, does it? And I know Nadia's going through this too with Hannah, and I know that when my mum is at her weakest, or when I just do a kind of quick status check on where we're actually at with my mum versus where we were, say, just 6 weeks ago or a month ago or a year ago, you just go, oh my God, okay, well, where's this going to come? When's it going to come? How's it going to come? And when you struggle, when you have these dips and these waves and these, and you can't predict it, you just, you know, trying to maintain some kind of serenity and let go and all that, let God, and yes, it makes sense, but sometimes it's just like, no, I need to be prepared. I need to be, you know, it's like being on a train and you're trying to surf it and you're standing without holding the handles, and you're like, well, I need to tense my body in order to not fall over. Sometimes it's all right to try and be predictively tense and white knuckly because you want to try and be prepared. But the way life works isn't like that. And so that's the evil, pernicious, fucking nasty shit of having a mental health condition like bipolar or depression, or which is, you just need some order, and there's no order. And when the no order isn't just meaningless shit like someone's been an arse to you, or something's not going right for you at work, or da-da-da, or even you fall out with someone, but when it's big shit, death, when it's death stuff, and you feel that death is stalking you in so many different areas of your life, just waiting in the side room, it's really hard. It's really hard. And right now, Toffee's just snoring away. And what I love is she's old. She's older than Chi-Chi. She will go one day. We've had a test run. The test run has been horrendous and horrible. There's a guy having literally running past, having a mental health breakdown. He's just running with a plastic bag and stuff in the air. But she's blissfully unaware that that's coming. So I'm now looking at my dog's head as she snores with its snooze just down there. I'm going to show you right at the end. I'm thinking, oh God, how to get that serenity. Put it bluntly, we are absolutely just poleaxed by how such a beautiful soul in the form of Chi-Chi, who just had that same empty, vacant, yes, maybe very stupid expression on her face. And I could just see it's totally broken our girls' hearts. So I won't have it said by anyone to anyone, oh, it's just a pet. Again, you have to have the imagination of a gnat. And actually, I've got to the point now that if you had a pet gnat, that would be justified too. Anyway, let me just show you Toffs as she snoozes.